28 seconds.
27.
26.
25 seconds.
24. 23.
22 seconds.
21 seconds.
20 seconds.
19.
18. 17 seconds.
16.
15 seconds.
14.
13 seconds.
12. 11.
10 seconds. 9.
8. 7. 6.
6 points.
Copy.
5 seconds.
3.
2.
1.
Welcome to Subspace Chatter, where we boldly go into discussing various episodes of Star Trek. Today we'll be discussing the Star Trek Next Generation episode, A Fistful of Datas. It first aired on 7th of November, 1992, as the 8th episode of TNG's 6th season. Joining the discussion today are a fistful of other co-hosts. Can you introduce yourselves?
Yes. Hi, I'm Brad. Howdy, y'all.
Hi, I'm Scott, host of the YouTube channel Opinions No One Cares About.
Hi, I'm Montalban from the channel The Vault.
And my name is Vanessa, and I have a YouTube channel called I Love Bad Star Trek. So let's get started. What was the purpose of this episode? Was it a fun episode to highlight the talents of the actors or something else? I think it was just a fun episode, personally.
I'd agree.
I think it was an opportunity to.
Fun.
I thought it was an opportunity to revisit things like Picard's flute, and tell a little bit of how they might be feeling if there was some of that downtime between, missions or something. But it was obviously connected to Spiner and his great, variety of character roles, or the kinds of characters he can portray, because he was central. So they just had fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it definitely helped add to his character count.
It was certainly nice to see him. He's played so many different characters in Star Trek, but they've all been kind of like types of Noonien Sung, bad Sung, good Sung, old Sung, young Sung. So it was good to see him play literally completely different characters in the holodeck. And I thought his villain was actually quite menacing, and it was actually interesting to see that he can pull off menacing. And it's good.
Yeah, he was a good character actor, and it goes back. Some of the accents were reminiscent of the character he had that was a one-off, but then they brought him back as recurring in the Night Court series before Star Trek. So if you haven't seen Night Court, you should take a look at Spiner's work in that series.
No, I've never seen it. I've never seen Night Court.
Really good. I think
my age.
I really think Spiner did a great job of taking inspiration from Fistful of Dollars, the spaghetti western that this is based off of.
Yeah.
I think he really studied the way that those characters are just so amped up and so comic booky. I think he did an amazing job. Yes, like you said, Monty, being menacing. And where's my boy? Like that, he just seemed to instill fear just by looking at you. Sheriff? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it did seem like they were at a point where, they were trying to have some fun. Like we were talking earlier, the episode before this, you literally have crew members being turned into children. So just trying to go a little further and see a little bit of what they can get away with. I don't know exactly when the switch was, because the beginning of this season was the conclusion of the Times Arrow two-parter, and that's a pretty serious episode. But still, with its fun elements of time travel.
Does Sheriff Worf act Klingon enough in this episode? His son is taken, the safety protocols are off, and there's real danger, yet he is unconcerned and unrushed when trying to get to the end of the program. Surely his Klingon instincts that pop up in DS9 and in the movies would have kicked in.
Oh, wow,
It's a good point. I don't know if maybe it's because his son was involved that he was being gentle with it, that he didn't want to be too rushed or rash. I don't know, but yeah, no, it's a good point. He wasn't particularly Klingon in this episode.
Yeah, I think I would have loved to see him tearing things apart in the sheriff's office to get out some of that nervous energy, but he was hyper in control, and that to me didn't seem in character.
No.
Yeah, especially since like at the when they got into the beginning of it, he like the first time they went into the saloon, Worf basically went into full Klingon mode to just beating everybody up, and then Alexander's like, "No, that's not how you do it." And then, it is a little weird that he continued acting like that once it wasn't the danger factor that was amped up. What was it said? Did he say it was danger? No, not danger level 4, whatever it was.
Difficulty level 4.
Difficulty,
Yeah.
And then he calms down after that. That's a little weird. Although, when you think about it, like he realized he was up against Data, if not a Data that actually recognized him. So it could have been the fact that he knew he was up against Data, who's like physically superior to him. He actually like grabbed him and caused him pain at one point. Like maybe he's just trying to hold back a little bit so that didn't happen to Alexander. I don't know.
Right. I think, yes, Data is much, much stronger than anybody on that holodeck. And I think also there could be an element of like, in the beginning, he was like trying really hard not to spend time with his son. Maybe he thought, maybe I don't have to worry about him anymore if I just no, that's horrible. But like I don't know. Like, yeah, you're absolutely right. He's way too calm for somebody who's had their child abducted.
And it could be right, as I don't think it goes as far as him just grateful that he can't not to spend any time with Alexander. I think it was he knew. I think he knew it was a program, right? That he knew. I wonder if he thought Alexander was safe because there wouldn't have been any overt injury caused by the program, right? Intentionally. But still, the safety protocols were off. That means Alexander could have run off a cliff. He could have, all kinds of things could have happened. And I just thought that he was a little too vanilla for a Klingon, right?
Yeah.
Even the Klingon didn't want to spend time with his son. He showed more range in his sitting down and huffing at the beginning of that episode when Picard released him from his duties than he showed post, sheriff. Oh, I can do this with 3 easy kicks, palm to the head, take the guy down. But even then he was in control. He just showed more range in that sitting than he did in anything else during the episode, I thought.
Yeah, but 6 seasons in and seeing how often the holodeck has malfunctioned and caused problems, he probably should have been a little more aware.
Why are the safety protocols even allowed to be off? That's the question I always have. Like, why is it even an option?
That's a fair point.
Sorry, I just want to give a shout out to Tavona in chat. Tavona there is one of my co-hosts on our TNG review show, and she's a massive Brent Spiner fan. So shout out to Tavona there. You must have loved this episode, Tavona, because she is a big fan.
Safety controls made them think about the true might Data has as a machine. I don't know.
Well,
but they spent time in this episode referencing Data's humanness, right? Even though they've plugged him in and he's going to take over control of the Enterprise, they reference him saying, or Geordi saying, I've never really seen you like, and that, you know, you're special to me. And then,
Yeah.
and Data says, you're special to me too. And there's this bond and connection between them, which emphasizes the human qualities that Data is so desperate to get, in contrast to that, you know, machine element.
Well, what about when he dresses up as a woman at the end? Is that another exploration of humanness, or is that like
That's just a gimmick.
just
Yeah.
Comedy.
One last
Yeah.
glitch in the program because we got to make Worf feel uncomfortable before we go. Because he's been uncomfortable.
Worf is like, I'm just so over this right now. I need to get out of here. Why would Worf try so hard to avoid spending time with his son? Like, why is he coming up with contrivance after contrivance, like duty after duty to just, what is it? What is it so painful about? Is hanging out with Alexander Roshenko just that painful? Like,
Apparently, it's just that fun to watch. I mean, his character arc as a father who kind of tries, but not as hard as he could, it's just a running thing. I don't really understand why. Like it even carries through to DS9, even though they both eventually, like, they reconcile and they become part of the House of Martok. It's almost like they just had it planned out for his character, no matter where he was going to be.
Yeah, I wonder what the decision was around, like, how they would treat the sort of father-son relationship, because Worf seems just extremely uncomfortable with the father role in general. I mean, the way that it came about was like suddenly he's a father. Like he was with somebody and then he just like found out right before the mother of the child died that he's a dad. So he's just sort of like thrust into it. And it wasn't like a natural outgrowth of being in a relationship or something. So, I mean, what would you think, Monty? Why do you think Worf is like trying so hard to get away from his son?
Yeah, I think it's kind of what you were saying there. You know, he was the father. He had fatherhood thrusted upon him, and so he's now performing his fatherly duties because he's duty bound to do so, but not because it was his choice and he really wanted it. And I think mostly, though, in this case, it's done for just comic effect, because it's fun to see Worf huff and puff at mundane things, you know, like having to go to a wedding or, you know,
a surprise birthday party.
Yeah, surprise birthday party. If you told him he had to go grocery shopping or something, he'd be just like, "Oh God!" You know, it's just fun, isn't it, to see Worf in that kind of setting?
Right.
Well, it was in the 90s that the plight of single parents became much more raised more frequently. It popped up in media, popped up in television shows.
Yeah,
became kind of a, I wouldn't say a popular, but it became a common trope in popular media of the time. So I wonder if this was, you know, an extension of some of those kind of societal themes that the showrunners added. But you know, in terms of the character, I wonder if the reason Worf is so distant is because he doesn't, as you said, it's suddenly thrust upon him. He has no way of, he didn't have a bond. He's so dedicated to duty, and this becomes kind of a thing that distracts him or you know, causes him to split his focus. But then I think that there's also an element of Alexander's raising by Worf's adoptive parents.
Yeah,
right. He became more human than Klingon, and that became an issue of you know, not embarrassment, but a little shame, especially as you see Worf developing that kind of hyper Klingon kind of sensibilities as he gets older and he becomes, you know, DS9, and in the movies you see him gravitating much more toward his Klingon heritage and traditions. So maybe there was some kind of inner turmoil about what it means. Maybe it's an issue of identity right? Whether he was embarrassed by Alexander's non-Klingon identity, or anyway, it was just things that were causing the character to grow or change or be thrust into conflict.
Right. We just got a comment. Worse resistance to fatherhood as it is expected of him while being an officer with no mates seemed to indicate some mindset in Klingon familial balance of duties. Well, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know if there is like a template for single fatherhood in the Klingon culture. Like, do they see, like, they just don't see like the rearing of children, I guess, as like the thing that the father does. The father's the warrior. I mean, they have to have people other than warriors in order for a society to function. But, if you are on duty, like I would guess that he sees it as like an extension of his warrior self. So maybe he's like, without the mother around, he's sort of lost as to how to spend time with his son.
And he defaults a lot to human traditions, human actions, human celebrations, right? In those early seasons, as his friends around him try to support, but they only know really how to support from a human or a Federation kind of perspective.
Yeah, and it makes sense that he would default to that because that is how he was raised. Like a lot of it, I think, is he was a Klingon raised by humans, so he doesn't really know how to do like the full Klingon experience. So he doesn't really know how to do right by Alexander, to raise him to be a full Klingon and to serve the Empire to the best of his ability.
Right, that's a good point.
It's also interesting that Avery Brooks ended up taking the role as Cisco in Deep Space Nine because he wanted the opportunity to portray a positive father role model, because he felt that, especially in the Black community, father role models were too few and far between, and he wanted to show how it was to be a good dad on camera.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting point.
And I think he was successful.
Absolutely.
I think he was successful.
Yeah.
And not only that, but he had like a good relationship with his own father. It was a very solid one. I mean, there was like points where it was conflictual, but they still had a solid foundation of love there.
Yeah, multi-generational representation. It was nice.
It's great. Yeah.
Another comment here: there may be a desire to step away since it is so alien to him. Yeah. Yeah, I guess, and also what we might, not everybody is necessarily built to be a parent. It wasn't something that he necessarily planned, and maybe that just was never in the cards for him. Maybe he like saw his life as just sort of being duty bound, and suddenly he's a father, and that just wasn't in the 5-year plan.
Yeah.
So what's up with Alexander's obsession with seeing his dad in a fight? Because when they have the bar fight, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, Worf is starting to have some fun because, like that one episode where he's like fighting dudes in skulls and leather jackets, like he enjoys going in the holodeck to fight. So he's like, ooh, this is fun. And then Alexander's like, no, let's turn up the difficulty. Like, what are you doing? What are you trying to, what are you accomplishing? Is this like a my dad can beat up your dad kind of thing? Like, I'm not sure.
I don't know. He might have just wanted to play the game like the way it was programmed, since he programmed it. And then, he probably realized once, his dad was beating up all the characters so easily that, maybe it's a little bit of an overmatch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I don't think it was, ooh, I want to see that happen again, but at a harder level. I don't think Alexander had that in mind. I think he wanted to play the game, and he wanted the game to last longer. He wanted to spend time with his dad. He wanted to do something that was fun, maybe to get them both out of the roles that they played, right? Give them complete play. And as kids do. They want to play, they want to imagine, they want to, dream.
Right.
And I think having Worf be able to take down the baddie so quickly, seemed a little bit speedy. So he wanted to change it up a little bit.
What do you think, Monty?
I've forgotten what we're talking. Sorry.
No, like why would Alexander want to see his dad fight? Like,
I think it's as you said. It's that kind of like he's proud of his father, and he wants to see him in action. He wants to see him challenged, to see what he's got. I think it's at the heart of his Klingonness that they've got that sort of fire inside them, and whether Alexander knows it or not, he's got that fire in him too. And he wants to see his big bad dad smash some people up.
I like Tavana's comment though. He's just an inexperienced DM. He's just an inexperienced. Doesn't quite know how to make it flow easily and well, so he just resets it all and starts again.
Right. Trying to make it more fair.
As little kids envision the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Was Alexander Rishenko a competent deputy, or would he be fired? I think he's horrible. I think
He played the role that he was assigned.
Yeah.
He always was going to get kidnapped, so it didn't matter how well right? That was he says it. I'm not supposed to be kidnapped now. Right? So
that was okay. Maybe I missed that beat. I didn't realize that was like part of the plan, was him getting kidnapped. Wow. That's very brave.
Yeah. I didn't pick up on that either. Well spotted.
Well, he built the program. He knew what the game was going to be within outlying parameters. He built it.
As we'll discuss in a minute.
Help.
So did Barclay, but
Like the resident holodeck expert
with quite the sense of humor.
Yeah.
Like,
weird. Did Alexander have a gun? Because like he was playing the full character, but I don't think he actually I don't think he had a gun. And
he had something in his holster, but it had rubber bands on it.
Oh,
there was nothing else.
Okay.
no cap gun, no,
it was just rubber
gun.
bands. That's all it was. Just rubber bands.
It's funny for a kid who would expect the safety protocols to be on.
But like, so Worf says we are law enforcement, so he is also there to enforce the law, regardless. Like, So I don't think he does a very good job, though. Like, there's a lot of people breaking the law, and he's not like doing anything about it. So
did you see the bag of gold he got from the bank?
Yeah.
I mean,
so he probably used that rubber band gun to hold them up.
Yeah, maybe.
So this episode's the name of the episode, Fistful of Datas, is based on the old spaghetti western Fistful of Dollars.
Yeah.
And this is a question I don't know the answer, but is the holodeck story in any way, shape, or form related to the film, like the characters, or I don't know the answer to the question. I was just wondering if anybody did know, or is it just the play on words and it's got absolutely nothing to do with the film?
Fistful of Dollars has quite a different plot. I think it's just that they're both Western, and then there's that one sort of stereotypical Mexican guy that just kind of laughs in the background. I think that's the only thing that is similar. But other than that, the plot of Fistful of Dollars is basically like Clint Eastwood keeps getting arrested and almost executed, and like his compadre keeps like shooting him down off of the nooses, and they keep getting away with more and more crimes. That's basically
I see.
They're fugitives, and it's extremely tangentially related, but yeah, it's basically just a spaghetti western with a very similar name.
Right.
Yeah. Was LaForge's beard working?
I know I asked that question, but
Mhm.
I think Data explained it best when he was talking about, it's hard to visualize the outcome when you're looking at it at the intermediate stage. It's like, yeah, it's a very, Data way to put it, but it makes a lot of sense because, a beard when it's first coming in, like stubble can look good. There is kind of an intermediate phase where it's, I don't know. I can't really grow a beard, so.
I
Was
think he
there a
rocks
story
this
behind
time.
that? Sorry.
So no, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
I didn't know if there was a story behind his attempted beard growing.
I have, but the best I can do is this little bit on my chin, and it's really scraggly, and it takes like a month. So no.
I wonder if LeVar Burton had another role somewhere doing something that required a beard, and they needed to explain the presence of it. But honestly, to see two men profess their caring for each other, their affection for each other, while explaining why do you have facial hair, is a little off-putting to me. It didn't seem to go hand in glove.
I think Data is kind of cattily getting back for people ragging on him for him trying to grow a beard and people laughing at him. Does anybody remember that when he was like, look, I have a beard, and it was like very Abraham Lincoln, and everybody just laughed at him. So I think when Jordy was like, ooh, look at my beard, he's like, oh yeah, you're growing a beard, you're trying to seek support for that, forget it.
Yeah.
We have a comment here. Alexander, writing a Rescue Me program, says a lot about the psyche of his son wanting to be rescued, retrieved because of his value in the fictional dynamic. Yes, he wants to see his dad, put some effort forth and try to outsmart the bad guys and get him back. That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if Alexander is feeling like he is not central to Worf's life. He wants his father to show him some care and affection, and the Rescue Me program is, I hadn't thought of that, but that's a great point.
Yeah.
Or maybe because he wrote it with Barclay, maybe Barclay was the one who created the Rescue Me dynamic as part of this storyline, because he himself was seeing something off in the relationship, and he maybe guided Alexander toward that, right?
So
Go ahead.
So like a really elaborate trust exercise. Maybe.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it could be. Maybe it was because again, Alexander said just off the cuff, Barclay helped. So it was Barclay helping, but that was because as children need a lot of guidance, Barclay probably supported and fleshed out and developed some of the program, i.e. the woman at the balcony when they first walk into town, right? So Barclay had his own touches in there. So how much influence did Barclay have? And I would think that Barclay has a sense of humor and probably guided in this kind of Rescue Me kind of program.
Barclay's additions are super cringe. We'll talk about that in a second. What did you think of Geordi's beard, Monty?
Well,
Can you hear me? Monty?
Sorry, you broke up then. I do apologize.
Oh, sorry. No.
I'm having a bad internet connection.
No, it's okay. What did you think of Geordi's beard?
Well, funnily enough, I've just looked it up very quickly, and it was for his wedding, because I couldn't see anything in IMDb that would explain why he had the beard. So apparently he wanted a beard for his wedding, and the Star Trek producers let him grow one. So that was the beginning of his wedding beard. That's the reason for it. I am obviously quite partial to a bit of facial hair myself. So I just think it's right. So especially now, it's all nice and grey. It looks pretty good on him. But
We have a comment here from Tavana. Data's response to Geordi's beard would, I think, be something he would comment on, as it was something that wasn't well received. So why would Geordi do it? Yeah, I agree.
Well, there's a male psyche component here too, right? I don't know of any man or any boy from my childhood who didn't at one point in their life try to grow a mustache or a beard, right? So there's an element of exploring that kind of masculine look. And if you were me, it didn't actually start coming in any capacity until my 50s. So, when you're in your teens, you got that little wispy beard or a little wispy lip caterpillar, right? And it's like look at my mustache, and it's just a couple of rabbit tracks across your upper lip.
I'm starting to grow a beard, and I'm almost 40, so I'm getting
50s.
there.
Unbelievable. 50s? What?
Wow.
Well, that's what you
that can't be
from
true.
that.
Yeah, that's what I took from that. Was like, in your 50s? What, man? Looking very good for it, I have to say.
Really well deep into my 50s.
Wow.
I have hair envy. I have to tell you. Yeah.
What was up with the wardrobe choice for Troy in the episode? Surely tight leather pants were not a common look in the ancient West. I think everybody replicated their outfits. So that must have been Troy's preference. For some reason, my beard is magnificent. That's great. I'm sure it is, Savannah. Yeah.
In story, no doubt, Troy replicated, and she's often shown in form-fitting clothing, right? So in story, maybe that was Troy's preference because Beta Zeds like to go naked, so this was her way of being clothed, but also culturally, whatever. But in terms of production, right? They had an option to show her wearing, Western, if she's going to wear pants, Western, rugged cowboy pants. But they didn't. They gave her a form-fitting top and very form-fitting bottoms that are not appropriate for the era. So the question is, why? And I know why. Because at one point in the episode, I was going, wider shot.
Yeah.
But
they really did a real, when she was in the jail doing the drawing, practicing.
Yeah.
They really zoomed in on her hips, and it was really, it just felt, it felt very objectifying.
Yeah.
And I do think that certain producers might have had a hand in that decision. I don't know that for certain, but I don't, it's definitely not practical for the time or place.
And I just wanted somebody else to admit it, that it was obviously objectification. But that's not, yes, objectification, not always a good thing. You don't want to be doing this out in public in real time, walking down the street, catcalling, all that kind of stuff. But some would argue, I'd be one of them, that the simple act of producing visual media is an objectification, right? So the person who's acting in that role is being objectified as a character in that role. Now, how much objectification, so she willingly went into this role and she kept the role for a long time. So she was participating in that objectification. That was her choice. And if she didn't like it, she could have left the show. But even Data is objectified. Even Worf is objectified. Those broad shoulders of his. Even Picard is objectified because they show him, standing tall. And some people respond to that kind of physical presence, right? So objectification exists across the board. But sexual objectification, that's a different kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised by Worf's size, because in the TNG review show that we have on Wednesday on my channel, we're on season 4. We just had Data's Day, and just the jump from, I know he's been increasing in size with the padding and that since like the first season, but the jump from where we are there to how big he is now, he's a big boy now, is Worf.
Mhm.
It's just, it does make a difference to his presence when he stood
Mhm.
next
True.
to other members of the crew. You know,
True.
in season 1, he looked like the same as them all. Now he looks massive compared to everybody else. But,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that at the beginning, like when he's talking to Picard about, he's trying to get out of doing this with Alexander, and there's actually this one shot where like it's a shot from over his shoulder looking down at Picard, but Picard, he was standing up at this point. I was like yeah, there's kind of a height difference here, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what was up with Barclay programming a woman to swoon over Worf, or putting in a flop house in this program for kids?
Yeah.
Why?
There is
What's
such
up with Barclay doing that? Why?
Well, like I said, I think this was Barclay guiding the program. I think this was his inner joke. He knows Worf is not very overly comfortable with that kind of expression. So this is him getting one over on Worf with an opportunity. And maybe he even asked Alexander, do you want this character to kind of hug your dad at the end? And Alexander's going, yes, yes.
We do know Barclay likes those kind of programs.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the original story, I don't know if I'm exactly right in this, but I think the original plot was Alexander trying to get Troy and Worf together, and this was the beginning of the whole Worf and Troy relationship. He was trying to matchmake because he thought they would make a good couple.
The
And
most
that's why
awkward pairing in TNG ever.
Yeah, I know. It never really made much sense to me. It was like, ooh, no. But yeah, I think that was the original premise for this episode, but they dropped that. They didn't follow through on that.
Seems
So-
like something he would do, especially being detached from history. I just think like if you're gonna have a like, I guess they just sort of see it as part of the scenery to include something like that. It's just strange that, with a kid in it, that you would like, oh, that's just a thing. Maybe sex work isn't as taboo or something, but I would just like, as a specific plot point in the program to include that is an interesting choice. And
You're right. So within the plot, within the story itself, right? As the narrative, we're talking about why would Barclay do what Barclay did. I think it makes sense given who Barclay is, and maybe how, as I said, maybe he was guiding Alexander in some of this, and I believe that maybe Barclay was having poking a little fun at Worf and in this kind of situation because of the rest of the episode and how the barkeep reacted and pursued Worf. But in terms of the production, right? It's a period or era appropriate, but we already talked about little exploitation. So having that within an episode is kind of, it like
Right.
captures people's attention. It's like, oh, look at this, and oh yeah, that's an interesting. Oh, look at this town, and again, it just connects with what the producers may have been doing to keep and maintain interest in the episode.
yeah, as Tavana pointed out, like sex work isn't taboo. You have like Dabo girls. You also, have, as this person pointed out, also Risa. And also like they don't really show like the dark side of what those places represented. Like there's nobody like you see these people sort of working on their own volition. At least the little that we see, it's just they're sort of like independent contractors. Versus like somebody being exploited by somebody being abusive and stuff. So I guess it's just like when you go to like an old timey Western place, like I used to live in Denver, and you would go to like old timey Western sort of themed places, and they would just sort of have women that dressed up like that. So maybe that's just part of the pastiche of the whole thing.
Yeah, they do that in Tombstone. Actually, I've been there a couple of times. The actual saloon that I guess was owned by what's her name, Big Nose Kate. It's a restaurant now. Everything's super themed in there. You can dress up and get your picture taken, like standing in a coffin if you want. You know, you're, like hung for horse wrestling or something.
Yeah, it's just, remember we're in the 90s. So we're, the episode is produced in the 90s. It was scripted sometime in the early 90s. It was based on a lot of attitudes that were holdover in the 90s from the 80s and from the 70s, and influenced heavily by the media of the time. As we know, Fistful of Dollars was, at least a little bit of a influence here. So you have what typically would be considered era appropriate kind of signals, right? Things that would signify that this is a certain period of time in history, and that would be one of them.
So like a romantically charged character literally chasing, embracing, and smooching all over another character. Yeah. They just sort of like Pepe Le Pew, this person pointed out. Pepe Le Pew also not the age like milk, really.
Cringe now. Yeah.
Well, I liked the depiction of a woman who was a little older and a little more plump.
Yes.
Right. Not being mocked for her interest in Worf. And I mean, the humor from the episode didn't come from her age or her size. It came from her active pursuit of.
Right.
And the contrast between Worf's obvious disinterest and her pursuit. I liked that they depicted somebody who was not the Troy-esque character, right? In that role, just gave greater diversity in what was really probably the era again.
Right.
So, what was the return of the flute from the inner light pointing to for Picard's character at the start of the episode, other than a comedic element to establish some of the subplots?
Yeah, I asked that question because, it was humorous to watch Picard trying to work through and constantly get interrupted with specific elements that were going to be subplots for the episode, right? Crusher and Worf. These are funny little bits, right? And of course, Data and Geordi, right? These are humorous because you could see how frustrated he became when all he was trying to do was enjoy some of his downtime, right? But he was choosing to use the flute and practice playing it. So was it meant to remind us of Picard's inner life and his cherishing of things that were personal and connected to relationships, and he was constantly being distracted or taken away from all of that? What was the point of it, right? That was what I was asking.
Yeah. And part of it could be the whole point of the inner light was Picard lived that life on an alien planet whose species I can never remember, and the whole idea of it was that if someone remembered them, that they wouldn't be forgotten. I think it was nice to see that play through in the later episodes, that shows that he's still playing the flute. He hasn't forgotten them.
Right.
He's fulfilling the promise.
So that's part of what the reoccurrence of that flute is meant to do, to remind us that he is honorable and that he honors, or he meets his obligation or his promise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like Tavana said in the comments.
Yeah, like Tavana said, exactly. The flute was a very apparent continuity plant, a way to add depth to a character who is purely seen as a captain. Absolutely. He's got an inner life, to put it
Inner
that
light.
way. Yeah. He's somebody who has emotions and memories and wants to sort of like the way that Picard pursues anything is a very solitary thing, and he's a very private person. And when like he loves to read, his hobbies are very like solitary. So, you know, it was a way for him to carve out some space for himself, I think, as well.
Yeah, he's taking part in, or he's playing along with this Mozart concerto, but he's got like 2 other instruments added in there, and he swaps one out at one point. Like we've seen, you know, the Enterprise do like string quartets and stuff. He shouldn't have had a problem trying to find like musicians to play with, but instead he's doing this himself.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Monty, what did you say?
I was going to say, you know, it was a good scene for all those reasons, but I couldn't help but think, like, where's Riker? What's Riker doing? You know, this is Picard's downtime. He's not on duty, and all the senior staff are coming to him with their problems, and Riker's on the bridge doing sod all. Like, he's just sat there filing his nails. Like, yeah.
No, whatever. In my mind, Monty, I was envisioning 2 things. One, Riker was either out with his leg up on one of the seats, doing his Riker lean, watching the view screen, right? Yeah. Or 2, he was kind of in the background somewhere, biding his time, waiting to go in and do the leg over the chair thing as he would sit.
That's what I'm thinking. He's practicing over higher and higher chairs.
Higher chairs.
You know.
But my money's on if they just had the shot, you know, of maybe he was in the ready room or something on the bridge during this time, and they'd seen Riker out there with his leg up on the chair doing the lean. That would have been, you know, a beautiful background image.
Yeah.
Like, as an introvert, it was like really starting to cause me anxiety, honestly, to watch him just like, okay, I'm by myself. I'm doing something I enjoy by myself. And somebody keeps like interrupting. He's like, the next person that comes through that door and this flute, I don't know. Like, it's going to be stuck somewhere.
You almost want him just to have that cathartic moment of, damn it.
I know.
He doesn't allow himself that amount of.
No, that's true. Not. He doesn't verbalize that stuff.
Loss of control. No.
He does actually. They're in that one episode with the Cardassian, not the Kardashian, and the 4 lights, right?
Chain of command, yeah.
That he does allow himself that little outburst at the end. He doesn't walk off with dignity. He does, you know, blurt out. But that was under extreme, you know, stress.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like when he's on Risa and trying to read a book, it kind of reminded me of that too.
Riker,
like,
he's such a
Riker put like, oh yeah, just put the statue near you. It's totally just, you know, whatever. Not really understanding what it means. And he's like just reading the book and people are approaching him. It was another one of those kind of things. So is the shot in the opening titles in the later seasons of TNG of a comet headed towards the sun an intentional metaphor or for conception, or was it accidental?
I'm just saying that's always what it looked like to me.
Well, you know, from a visual standpoint, okay. All right.
I'm never going to see the intro the same way ever again.
I didn't realize until I read the question, like what you were getting at, but oh my God, it was strange that they were addressing him on his downtime, mostly Worf, as his request seemed work related. Right. They have boundary issues, you know.
It's Riker sabotaging him again. He's on the bridge. Right. Oh, you better ask Picard that one question. You better ask Picard. He's just sabotaging. He's on a quest to sabotage Picard's downtime, so he retires earlier.
But you're right, from a command standpoint, Riker would be on the bridge handling all of these command duties while Picard's off doing his own thing. Yeah.
And
They
also,
were
like,
taking liberties.
when you live in your workplace, I would imagine like the borders around your free time get a little blurry.
Have you guys ever had to address work emails? I mean, come on. Perfect example. Constantly bombarded with emails, even in your downtime, and people would expect, as a teacher, right? Emails. Someone sends an email and they're looking at their their watch, going 10 minutes. How come they haven't responded yet? It's tricky.
I've never thought of the comet that way. I actually, because I'm a relatively new Star Trek fan, I've always had the skip intro option. So I haven't really closely studied the intro quite to that degree, but now I am. Now
I won't be able to stop thinking about it.
No. It's
Oh
ruined.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Don't say it like that.
Oh dear. Very good.
This version of Star Trek was odd, as Picard had no assistants. Would he on his downtime though? Would he have somebody, like, unless somebody was going to also play with him in his band? Like, his downtime is usually solo.
Well, if Barclay had been responsible for programming the assistant, it would have been something different.
Yep.
Like I said, I can't stop thinking about it now.
I guess the captain would always have, like Kirk had a yeoman, didn't he? Like round.
Yeah.
So, to handle his paperwork and bring him his coffee and all that sort of stuff. Picard never had a yeoman.
Right. I mean, Picard was pretty working in like a professional sort of corporate environment. Everybody has like a different style. And I would imagine that, like, Janeway has her own style and Picard has their own style, and each captain has their own drink, I guess. And Picard is very eager to get his own drink from the replicator. That's why he has one in his ready room. So I think, when he's, and I think even having the ready room in general is like his way of just getting away for a second. He's like such a hardcore introvert that he's just like, I need a minute to just have my tea alone.
Well, we don't see yeoman in Discovery, which is set before the Enterprise,
right?
Before TOS. We don't see yeoman in Voyager. We don't see yeoman in Next Gen.
It's just Kirk. Kirk was the only, he's just the lucky one. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if the yeoman was a holdover from kind of a militaristic kind of thinking from the 60s, and as the show progressed, later versions, they did away with that because it does seem a little bit subservient. It does seem a little bit, off.
Well, I think that actually had to do with Grace Lee Whitney having an incident with one of the people on the crew. I also think that the yeoman position just seemed to be like a secretary type of position in general, and they don't like to have like a secretary. It's just sort of an antiquated idea in a captain's role. So
yeah, I think that's it. It was just an antiquated idea that didn't transfer into the 90s and beyond.
I think originally she was supposed to be like Kirk's love interest, but because they also wanted Kirk to have like, dalliances elsewhere,
Yeah, they couldn't portray it without actually starting to get into supporting or condoning certain behaviors.
Right.
Yeah.
So how many pips out of 5 would you give this episode? I would give it like a 3.5 personally.
Oh my Lord.
It's like so fun. I think this is one of the quintessential fun episodes of the series. I really enjoy Data playing different roles all the time. I think he does this way more successfully than he did in Masks. And even Data Lore, honestly, I really enjoyed him as like the villain. I really enjoy spaghetti westerns generally. So
I think that I would probably give it a 4.5 simply because of the character work of Mr. Spiner. Of course, you could make a case that the inner life that was explored for Picard didn't necessarily take away from that episode. But it had to be all Spiner. So I'm going to give it a 4.5.
How about you, Monty?
I'm not going to try any kind of accent.
Because
it would be culturally not appropriate.
Nobody's going to be offended, I promise. But
No,
it's okay if you don't want to.
I'll give it a 4. Yeah, 4 because as you said, Spiner's acting mainly. It was great. I thought it was fun. It was a fun episode, and I like the reference to Inner Light. And yeah, it was just entertaining.
Yeah, I'd say I'd also give it a 4. I have been getting in a little bit more into westerns lately, and I did love the whole western aspect. There was like these little details, like the way we noticed the character in the holodeck like shuffled cards like Data, or like the actual scene where that energy surge went through his, what did it say, positronic subprocessor. Like at the same time that's happening, he's plugged into the machine and you can see the lights in his head blinking, and then when that happens, they start blinking faster. I thought that was great attention to detail.
Yeah.
But yeah, based mostly on Spiner's character work, yeah, it's absolutely a 4.
4.5 for my fabulous, fully functional fire.
She didn't give it a 5. I'm surprised, Ivana, or even a 6. We've got paddles. I could have gone.
Oh
that,
boy.
couldn't I?
Oh. Okay.
Fire. Oh, Guy in Norwegian. Oh, I got it. Okay, awesome.
Tavana, we're in agreement for 4.5, but I won't describe Spiner in that way.
Yeah, the reason that I didn't give it like a higher score also was just like it didn't really develop anybody. I don't think. I didn't really think it like pushed anything forward. Like I think it's a fun episode. I think I really enjoy the Western genre in general. And like having Worf sort of like grumble his way through certain things and then sort of like have fun, and but like I didn't think it developed anybody. Even with the Inner Light flute, that's my only sort of quibble. But
I don't know. I might say in one aspect, gotta watch where my finger is. Needed another F for alliteration. That's good.
Yes.
The only thing I could think of was, when Troy was worried that Worf was going to get killed because, now the holodeck character is an android with an android's precise aim. And then Worf comes up with the, technobabble solution to save the day by modifying his comm badge. Like, I wouldn't have thought that he knew how to do that. And I also didn't think, like, there was any communication with anybody outside the holodeck. So
right.
I think that works toward his character development. And then right at the end of the episode where, like, he puts on the hat and he does the whole, like, draw thing in the mirror, I thought that was really cute.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he did get to do that for all.
Yeah, it's a nice way to end it. I think also is Worf and Alexander didn't come away with it with a
Right.
new perception of each other, or as you were saying earlier, it didn't take their relationship any further forward, did it? I think if they'd have come away with it with a newfound respect, or like they're learning something from each other or something like that, then it probably would have enhanced the episode in some way. Yeah.
Right.
If Worf needed to be more Klingon, he needed to tear things apart. He needed to be breaking down walls. He needed to be pulling, beams off of porches and swinging at other Spiner characters that were popping up from all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have had to go in full battle mode for me.
I really wish that they had, like, Tavana might be suggesting, I don't know, but like if Data played Alexander and played Deanna and played Worf.
Tavana's perfect episode right there.
I think they missed an opportunity in the 90s, and it wouldn't have happened because it would have been too awkward. But they missed an opportunity for the female character that Data was playing, right? That hug was good, but it would have been, I think, the progression would have been with her giving a kiss, right? If it had been the actress doing it, they might have allowed a kiss on Worf's cheek, right, to portray that awkwardness. But I missed Data doing that, right, which would have been for me the progression of the character's efforts, right, to show the affection for Worf's character. But I don't think primetime TV was ready for that kind of moment.
No.
Italians do it all the time. So thanks to the panelists for joining this discussion. We hope you, our viewers, have enjoyed it as well. Let us know in the comments section what you thought about the Next Generation episode. Please remember to like and subscribe to the video, and we'll see you next time. Trek you later.